Welcome back, Dr. Luke Tartaglia. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, I really appreciate you joining. We've been trying to meet up here for a little bit, and because of me, we're delayed. But we're here. We're doing this. We've had some really nice feedback, quite a bit of feedback, positive, no negative, from the last time you were on last fall, and this time having you as my guest. You have a book that came out recently called "The Return of the Cloth."
That's right.
And I wonder if you could share with us about it, because also for a lot of us, it's a special time of year with Lent. We're in Lent right now, and um, please share with us about the book.
Well, this is the sequel to The Last Gift of the Magi. At the end of the story, for those of you who read it, you know that the bolt of linen was not left with the Holy Family. And the camel drivers took it back, and the Magi told them that one day they'd have to return it to the Holy Family. Uh, and it picks up right where the book ended, with Mary, Joseph, and the two camels escaping to Egypt. The fun part is it's a great book for Lent because it goes all the way up through Easter and the resurrection. And so it's a good book for Lent because it's about spiritual transformation, character development, and about looking at who you are and what you do and your character and how you can transform it. And Lent is the perfect time to do that as you prepare for the celebration of the resurrection. So the book is a little bit heftier than the other one. There were I was doing spiritual direction for uh, some nuns at a monastery, and they read the Last Gift of the Magi. And when I said I was working on the Return of the Cloth, they wanted more spiritual direction. And so there's advice, but the advice isn't given to you, the reader, the way a self-help book would be. It's advice between Heba and Jamil, the two camels, and how Heba is trying to teach Jamil how to become a better camel. The
Right.
And it becomes a whole lot of fun because most people, when they're reading a fable and it's animals doing the character work, don't resist the techniques, don't resist the process. They understand the process and they try to see how the process actually worked in the animals. So it's a great way to get past conscious resistance. I also get a lot of feedback from people in recovery who say that it's a great a book when you're working on your inventory or you're working on trying to correct things as you discover, um, you know, where you've harmed people or where you're not practicing the program. So it's got a lot of nice um, sub markets that people enjoy it with. The book has a romance in it. I've never written a romance before, but
Mhm.
it's essential because it sets up uh, the final phase where you can see that the camels are going to go out into the world and pass the message on. And it really it was really a lot of fun. So
Well, yeah, there's so much that you've said already that just makes my head spin with all kinds of thoughts and ideas. And seems like really the past few months I have been going through I wouldn't call it a transformation, but being well, let's digress for 1 second. Okay, first of all, the name of this show is called Your Health Matters. When we think about health, a lot of us think about our physical being, nutrition, what we eat, what we put on our bodies, moving, exercising, getting, stronger muscles, building muscle, balance, cardiovascular, heart, lungs, whatever. There's so many other types of health when it comes down to it. And one of the things that we haven't touched on very often in the show, would be, let's say, character health, spiritual health. We've talked a little bit about, well, the health of your emotions, your emotional health, your mental health. Part of our health for emotions, physical, and mental would be sleep. You happen to be a sleep doctor, a
Right.
specialist in sleep, which maybe we could touch on that today a little, but we have financial health. We haven't talked about that yet. We probably will at some point, but I've been thinking, and I'm kind of hijacking the conversation here, but it does correlate because, um, we each have our faith, or if you were like me and you had no faith for 58 years, and now for 3 years ago on the 16th of April, I will be baptized Catholic. For me, this has been the most beautiful experience I could ever imagine happening in my life. But that's just me. Because there's so much to it. So now that us Catholics are in the period of Lent, but I didn't give up chocolate or hot peppers or, any coffee or anything, but I am really taking a look at furthering my character development. And
Right.
we're talking about this in both books. I mean, we're talking about this in your last book,
Last gift to the Magi.
Yes. And so I find that this is actually a healthful subject in a way too, because it all ties in. Spiritual health, the health of your character, like how do you act? Are you acting towards others the way you would like to be acted upon towards? For example, do unto others, right? I question myself on that frequently, asking, how can I do better? Because I feel that at the end of the line, no matter what really happens when we die, I have my belief, yes, my beliefs. If I've done well towards others and my character has been solid and good and I live with integrity, it might be okay. So I don't know where you want to go with this, but we have
So, the
20 seconds before a break, so let's fill up 2 minutes.
point you make about not giving up chocolate, that's for kids. But giving up a character flaw for Lent and praying for a virtue and working on a virtue is a more mature way of going through the season of Lent. And I think that's the book really helps with that.
Absolutely. I find that one of my knee-jerk character traits is to judge. And I never considered myself judgmental until I really took a look back. And I won't get into politics. I don't want to talk about politics. But let's just say I don't agree with some things going on either side of the aisle. My first reaction, the knee jerk, is to, oh, those people they got to be out of their minds. Yet I have to get kind of hone in and say, wait a minute, Karl, how do you know? You know what I mean? So that's the character flaw I'm really trying to work on now is back off, don't assume anything of other people, and don't judge,
Yeah. And I make an assumption whenever somebody does something that harms me, that they were doing the best they're capable of, no matter how, how crappy the event was, that their motivations in their mind is always that they're doing good somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. Well, let's pick up on this when we come back. This is Your Health Matters with Dr. Lou Tartaglia. We're talking about his new book called Return of the Cloth. We're talking about a lot of different things, but character development, character flaws. I love the idea of giving up a character flaw for Lent. I think it's beautiful because that is a higher altitude type of, let's say, giving up and working on something. So we'll be back with more after this short break. Again, this is Your Health Matters here on News Radio 570 WSYR. My name's Karl Sterling. We'll be right back. All right. We are back with Dr. Lou Tartaglia, and this is really interesting. This whole conversation I find fascinating about character. So I was wondering, Doctor, could you first maybe define what is character? And then if we want to, let's say, transform or modify, what's the process of making a change in our character?
Right. So, character is the blend of virtues and flaws that your soul wears as it presents itself to the world. So, everybody has some virtue and everybody has some flaws. We have concupiscence, by human nature, we're flawed. And that blend is um, modified or transformed as we face life and how we deal with things. But eventually, we get mature enough where we're able to look at our flaws and we're able to say, I'd like to drop this. I'd like to get something, do it a different way. So the process is identify the character flaw, then identify the opposite virtue. An easy one would be anger. Okay. So I'd like to, during Lent, practice being less angry and less irritable, and less impulsive with my remarks when I'm upset with somebody. And the opposite virtue would be um, peacefulness, to practice peacefulness. So the process then becomes um, for those who want a spiritual transformation, you pray for the grace to remember to practice peacefulness when you're angry. And invariably what happens is people explode and then they stop and they realize they had an opportunity to practice peacefulness and they blew it. And then little by little, they stop when they get angry, pray for the grace, and they come to a better understanding of how they're going to uh, live the next few minutes with that anger and how they're going to relate to the other person. Now, if you change one character flaw, everything changes in your life. So it was Heraclides that said, character is destiny. In Greek, I think it was istan anthropoi daimon. And I may have that wrong, but character is destiny. If you change one flaw, you change your destiny. That's why you see people in recovery make a slight change, and it might just be being rigorously honest about something. And there's a cascade of effect in their entire life.
Mhm.
And they tend to then start working the program better and they start to transform, and people start to know that somehow they're changed. And we have a really defective character in the book. Jamil, the younger camel, is a mess, but he's got all this hidden potential. He's got all this energy, and he's the fastest camel that anybody's ever seen. There's so much going on with him, but he has to process his character flaws.
Right.
So Heba takes him through the process. Whenever he gets upset, like he gets upset and he spits at somebody while Mary and the baby are on the saddle, and he's carrying them. And you can see that Mary is a little bit frightened. She's wondering what's going on, and the camel acting like a complete nincompoop. And Heba then takes him through the process of, I guess, processing the anger and looking at what he did and the effect it had on other people. And then he gets to make amends by being peaceful.
So yeah, it's really interesting. I think it leads me to think about something that we talked about before to some degree. So yeah, I hate to use myself as an example all the time. I'm not trying to impress anybody, but I'll just say it again. People who listen to the show know that I have fully admitted to my heavy drinking problem years ago, which I gave up one New Year's Day, sucking right out of the vodka bottle. It just didn't look right. It wasn't doing any good. So that was it, cold turkey. what I found is I had to want it bad enough, and I did. And then the cascade of changes, though, they came pretty fast. It
Yeah.
wasn't like it was easy to stay away for a while. There were a couple of years where it was kind of tough, and I would pull into a parking lot of a liquor store, and then at least I could call a friend. There was a friend I had, and she would help me. Say, no, don't go in. Okay. She didn't make me feel bad. She just made me see the consequences and
Right.
the derailing any progress I'd made in numerous areas. So I would you consider like substance abuse at all related to character flaws, or is character cause a substance abuse, or how do those go together?
They interact with each other.
Yeah.
In order to do well in recovery, you have to be able to take an inventory of the people you've harmed and be able to look at where you're defective and what you need to change. You can't get by without doing that. Um, there are people, I guess, that get addicted to just about anything, but the addiction itself enhances the character flaws. So obviously, if you drink, once you've had the third drink, your inhibitions diminish a bit, and if you drink to intoxication, third drink is intoxication. But if you drink much more, you lose control of your emotions, and you're a mess, and it interferes with your relationships with everybody around you. It
Yeah.
interferes with your health. So the addictions and the character flaws um, interact with each other, and it helps augment them. And I really believe that people get tempted um, to go back and enhance the character flaws. But once you're in the addictive cycle, I don't even think um, a demon needs to bother with you anymore. You're on autopilot at that point. You don't need a temptation, because you're addicted at this point.
Yeah.
And you have to break that cycle, and you have to identify what's wrong, what you're doing, what are the characters.
Hmm. Yeah. It's really interesting. I find another theme that tends to accompany those who are in recovery, that would be finding any faith. And I always thought it was just, oh, here goes another one. They're clean now and they found Jesus or they found God. Oops, I'm among those people now. It's like, what happens? But you know what? For me, it was a little different experience. I mean, came years after I stopped drinking, but I had a life. I had a situation happen in Singapore. I was in the hospital, and massive DVT broke off into an embolism and all this kind of stuff. And I was actually supposed to die. And I woke up and I realized I was not alone. So that was my beginning of faith. But now I find that that's another part has become part of my daily part of my character, is having any faith. Is that possible to have faith among your character? I feel like it's helping guide me.
Yeah.
It's not fail to guide me.
Again, the process is you look at the character flaw and you pray for the grace to be able to
Thank you.
practice the virtue.
Yeah.
And that's what's needed. Ultimately, the character transformation is the Lord's going to try and transform your character into his character. That's the ultimate goal.
Beautifully stated. I love that. Love that. When we get back, we'll continue with Dr. Luke Tartaglia talking about Return of the Cloth, his new book, and some other things. But before we go to break, I'd like to leave you with some words from Father Malachi, who moved to the Cortland Catholic Church. Try, instead of reacting or acting like a human, try to do those things like God. And I'll expound upon that when I get back, because that was a life-changing realization for me, those words. This is News Radio 570, WSYR. My name's Karl Sterling. This is Euro Health Matters. See you in a couple of minutes. We're back with Dr. Lou Tartaglia. We're talking about character. We're talking about his book, The Return of the Cloth. So, Fellow Malachi, again, I don't have it verbatim, the words, was very close to this. Instead of acting like a human or reacting like a human, like I tend to do sometimes, because I'm human, is, make an assumption, knee-jerk reaction, whatever. Try to react like God. What would God think of the thing you're reacting to, and how would God react to this himself? And I find myself every now and then dealing with a person usually who actually just, probably annoys me a whole lot for some reason. Maybe because they come across, in my opinion, as condescending, arrogant, know-it-all, whatever. And they're coming to me for advice and they don't want to listen to me. So I have to pull up the big boy, put on the big boy pants and try to be polite and not, offend them, because I don't know what they've gone through in their life. Who knows? None of us know what anyone goes through if we don't know the person. So with that said, I just want to expound upon that a little bit. Father Malachi, if you happen to hear this, thank you. We really miss you a lot too at Holy Family. And those are wise words I live by on a daily basis. So can you expound upon that for me a little bit, Dr. Tartaglia? Because what you said when we weren't recording that didn't get aired, it was, I think, really relevant to.
Yeah, so the ultimate goal is God has created you with certain gifts, certain talents, and he wants to be able to use them for the good of others. So in order to be able to use them properly, you have to be doing his will. You have to be using those gifts for what he wants you to use them for. And so I want to just preface this. I have a buddy that's a mystic, and there are some people out there who see angels. He always reminds me, remember, there's a demon for every sin, and there's an angel for every virtue. So when you decide you're going to let go of a sinful behavior or a character flaw, and you're going to start to practice a virtue, you pray for the grace to be able to practice it. And then you become the vehicle. The Lord allows you to be his hands. He allows you to be his feet. He allows you to be his mouth to help bring people to closer to him and to salvation. And and he's created you with these gifts. You're not going to know your gifts unless you get rid of the character flaws, get rid of the sinful behavior in your life, and you start to practice virtue. There are three virtues, though, that are infused in everybody. All you have to do is ask for them. That's faith, hope, and love. You can always pray for an increase in faith, hope, and love. And you should do that every day. You try to have more faith, be more hopeful, and love others more and more.
Yeah, powerful. I just had a fleeting thought that I thought was really important, and now I'm thinking of other things, which tends to happen a lot when my mind gets going, like you make it do, doctor. Thank you. You know, it's coming back to me here. When I think about faith and I think about character, it really helped me. Now, I don't know which came first, though. Like, I feel like giving up drinking, I feel like finding faith helped me to determine a bigger, more grand sense of purpose in life. It's like I was allowed to discover a purpose, which I have many purposes, right? I mean, I have overall purpose is to really just treat people well, all right, and help people. I've always wanted to do that, but now I really want to do it. So in my practice here, we help people, but it doesn't have to be in a business sense. It can be in a life sense. Open the door for somebody, but finding a sense of purpose. This seems to help. I think it's helping me develop my character because I now have a sense of purpose and I'm moving forward with it. and with, well, I have God in my life. Okay. And I have a faith, and I'm moving forward, feeling like I'm being guided by his words and also a goal. And it seems like it all goes together, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And you intuitively know um, that any flaw, any sinful behavior, any character defect is going to take you away from your purpose.
Yeah.
And that's the reason you get tempted for these things, because there are forces, spiritual forces, that don't want you to live your purpose, don't want you to do God's will. The other thing is, and you're a healer, right? So when I interviewed Mother Teresa, and I don't know if you've ever seen that audio program we did.
Oh, I have it. So let me interject. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. I'm glad you said that because I wanted to mention that you did a program for her and you had met Mother Teresa. And I remember the incident you talked about in India, in Calcutta, but I love that program. Um, and what's the name of it? Because I got it right here.
Thirsting for God. It's an audio program. You can get it on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, and
Yeah.
it's delightful because it's actual recordings of Mother. But she owes you
Is her own voice.
her own voice, yeah. And she used to stress to see Jesus in the disfigured disguise. And it took me years before I started seeing that in my patients. It's almost like a mystical experience when you're in the room. I'm the oldest of all the sleep specialists in the practice. So if there's anybody that's extremely complicated, the other guys give up and send them to me.
Okay.
And you're in the room and the case is complicated. And there's this sense of Jesus is hidden within the person. And I'm going to connect with Jesus as I'm treating the person. I'm going to see Jesus in the disguised, disfigured person before me. And when that happens, your healing ministry becomes part of the healing ministry of Jesus.
Wow. Yeah, that to me, I'd have to digest that, but on that, just right now, here and now, just hearing that really has a high impact on me because that is something I can use to help me with my reactions that are not godlike.
Yeah. And we all have them. We all have them. We have patients that are intolerable. You have somebody on CPAP because they had a optic stroke, and you've got to make sure that their oxygen level stays up during the night. They go on vacation. They decide it's too inconvenient to bring their CPAP with them.
Mhm.
And I give them a hard time. And what do? They write me up. And I was rude to them in the office. I'm trying to keep the guy from having another stroke and going blind.
Yeah,
Well,
of course. Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, I know I could talk about some too. I don't want to spiral down that road, but
but we all run into it, and
they're out there, and I've been one of them in the past. So I'm no holier than anybody, and I'm not above anyone.
right.
When you're trying to practice a certain way. Yeah, that's powerful. Finding Jesus within the disfigured, let's say, the person. Yeah, and connecting at that level. Yeah, I love that. Love that. So, can you tell us just a little bit more in these? Oh, actually, I got to go to break in 1 minute. I'll tell you, radio minutes. I say it all the time, but especially today because this is so fascinating to me, and I love having you on as a guest. These are the fastest minutes of my life. I need an all-day show. Well, with that said, so we'll go to break in a second here, folks. This is Karl Sterling. You're listening to Your Health Matters here on News Radio 570 WSYR, also available on 106.9 FM. Our guest again today, for the second time on our show, is Dr. Lou Tartaglia. We're talking about his new book called Return of the Cloth. We're talking about character development. We're talking about all kinds of fascinating things. So stay tuned. We have one more segment to go, and we'll be back after this break. Thanks for listening. All right, we're back here on Your Health Matters. My name is Karl Strong. Today we're with Dr. Lou Tartaglia. And I just have this book here I want to show, even though we're on radio. This video, though, is on YouTube and Spotify. So if you happen to want to watch, I'm showing to the camera, holding up to the camera, Thirsting for God. All right, this is a book that is an audiobook and put together by Dr. Tartaglia. And it features in her own voice Mother Teresa, who I know you met. I love that story. Now, today we are talking about a book, new book by Dr. Tartaglia called Return of the Cloth. Doctor, why should people be reading this book right now?
Well, we're heading towards Easter, and it's a perfect book to read towards Easter. Lent is about taking a look at your soul and preparing yourself and getting ready for the celebration of Easter. It takes you through the Last Supper. And my favorite part of the book, in the Last Supper, when you're writing, sometimes you change the point of view, and the story is told by one character, then it's told by another. And what I did at the Last Supper is viewed what was going on, what Jesus was doing when he was instituting the Blessed Sacrament, and what was going on in Judas's mind, and what was going on in John's mind, and they contrast with each other, and you go back and forth, and it takes you through the Last Supper. And there are a couple of fine theological points that are put in there, and little things that people need to know as they're approaching Easter. And so it really is a great book for this time of the year. Although if you're into working on yourself and you don't want to read a self-help book that's preachy, you want to read something that's just entertaining and you can read through and read the story, this is a great way to do your transformation.
Well, that's one of the things I like about it is a story and it's not preachy. So I tend to I like both actually, but I really like this because I like stories. And I think stories, as our mutual friend Mark Victor Hansen says, if we don't tell a story, we're not going to engage nearly as many people.
Right.
And
that's correct.
Yeah, it's the way it goes. It's the way it goes. So, all right, let's get back with, where people can buy the book. Now, we know we can get it Barnes & Noble, Amazon, I believe, right? And I'm going to put links in the description of where people can check you out. What is your website address where people can go, Doctor?
Tartaglia.com, Tartaglia.com. And then you can go to lastgiftofthemagi.com. They're linked together, so it doesn't matter how you go there.
Beautiful. Well, we have some time left here, so let's keep talking. Let's talk more about the story. Maybe some features and highlights of the story that you'd like to, point out.
Yeah. So then in the very end, there's a third camel that turns out to be a descendant of Jamil, and it then takes it to the next level, and that becomes a racing camel. Jamil goes off eventually and lives his dream. He lives his purpose, which was to become a racing camel. And it's just it's a fun story because you've got religious historical fiction. I trace where the Holy Family went through Egypt, so you know where they were during that period of time, and then how they came back, and then eventually moved back up to Nazareth. Then it takes you to where the camel drivers are, and then 33 years later, the Magi contact them and say it's time to bring the cloth back. In time for the crucifixion and in time for it to become the shroud.
Right.
Yeah. So it was just a lot of fun. But this is the time to read it. This is the time where you should be working on yourself, getting prepared to celebrate the feast of Easter, which is just a fabulous time of the year. And this will bring you right through to it.
That's beautiful. You know, another thing that's happening here in Syracuse, New York area, not sure about where you are in Ohio, right? You're in Ohio?
Yeah, in Northwest Ohio.
Are you getting any warm weather right now? Because we are.
Yeah, we were 73 yesterday.
Ha! 83 here today is what they said. And this is a time where even though we know there could be more snow and other storms and this and that and ice and cold, I'm feeling a renewal as spring comes around. And, you know, this is a special time of year for me in multiple ways. I see a spring, a summer, a fall forthcoming. And this is a time when I really start to get extra excited about making sure my health is the best it can be so I can go into those seasons and enjoy them the most. Because I'm really active outside and I like to do things and I don't want to lose that ability. Maintain what I'm doing, the hiking, the running, the climbing, bicycling. But, you know, having faith in my life, of course, this is also a beautiful and special time of year as well. So a lot of renewal going on right now, I guess.
Right. And isn't it amazing the liturgical calendar correlates so well with springtime and renewal, and the Christmas season where it is progressively getting darker, and then right as Christ is born, the days then start to get longer, and things start to change. It's just it's so well set up. God really knows what He's doing.
Yeah, it seems like he just might. So, well, let me ask you this. Do you have any other irons in the fire as far as writing books?
I just started working up a character. I'm going to probably call him John Doe, who gets amnesia, and so he has no past, and becomes just an Uber driver in New York or a taxi driver. I haven't decided which one he's going to be. And I want to teach where he has conversations with his next ride and teach different lessons with each passenger. So I started working that up, and I've got a biography of St. Francis of Assisi that needs to be polished. I'm not sure when, if ever, I'll bring that out. But it's I was in Assisi, and there was a nest of turtle doves inside the statue of St. Francis near the Portiuncula.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wrote a story about the turtle doves. And what they do is they tell the life of St. Francis as they watched it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm off to Mexico City to work for a week. Every time I go there, it's totally not related, but it is related in a way. We're almost to the end of the show here. I can't believe it. But when I go there, it's some of the most beautiful cathedrals I've ever seen, there, South America, Europe. But I always hit up the Basilica when I go Mexico City. So the original is 500 years old this month, March.
Yeah.
And Lady of Guadalupe. And it's just beautiful. So I'm really excited to take my new camera and 2 new lenses with me and get some great photos. I just wanted to mention that. But we got a minute to go. Doctor, do you have any takeaway message for people?
Yeah, if you're going to pray for anything, there was a priest told me one day, when you don't know what to pray for, ask for an increase in faith, hope, and charity, and the wisdom to care for His people.
I love it. I just love it. I really appreciate you being my guest again. I'm glad I know you. And thanks for taking this time, Doctor. Thanks very much.
You're welcome, Karl. It's been fun.
And folks who are listening, thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate you tuning in and, giving us such great feedback on the show. There is a link to Tartaglia.com in the description so you can check out what Dr. Lou Tartaglia is doing. We'll be back next week with more. In the meantime, be sure to move your body and use your brain, pray for others, and be nice to everybody. Have a great week, and thanks again for listening.